think they like it when they get close to the gunnels. So I'm outside Rosslare Harbour, but I'm stuck up against the beach looking for an anchor spot. In this episode, I'm going to be leaving Baltimore and making my way along the south coast of Ireland. About 135 miles overall passage, yeah, first stop in Kinsale, the first day, and then a 24-hour passage along the south coast and round to Rosslare. Can't see it much here, but it's really gnarly out here tonight. It's not as bad as it was, but it's started to back off a bit now as it's passing through. I think we must have had 35 knots sustained at one point. No one who's on any boat in this harbour is going to be sleeping. Anchor is holding its ground. I've got all my scope out. I put it down earlier on, also later on in the afternoon, because I could see this was going to come through. But Jesus, I mean, the amount of rainfall we've had in the last hour is just like ridiculous. It just woke me up, and it was pounding its way on the coach roof. It's insane. Right, the journey continues. Massive country this. I absolutely love it. Just trying to clear some of the headland. The last few days have just been hammers and tongs with winds up to 30 knots straight from the Atlantic. Just trying to get some sea room from between me and these cliffs. It's like an ultimate lee shore. You can't drop the anchor. You wouldn't even be able to crawl up some of them rocks. They're just sheer rock faces. They're good. Just had another Jester Challenger come out. He's heading off back home. I think a lot of them are today. Not much wind and some pretty big swell. I've got them motored to try and keep us straight because I'm running downwind and there's really not that much wind. We've still got a lot of swell from this 4-7 this morning. I might be tempted to head further offshore, but the further I go out, the more I'll lose time on tide for getting up sort of the coast. Been in Kinsale overnight, came in yesterday afternoon. Unfortunately I've had quite substantial issues with power again. The battery seems to have gone quite flat, so I've had it charging off shore power overnight, which is much better. But I'm pretty sure the solar panel is doing something, it's drawing back. So I've disconnected that, and well, we'll see. I've disconnected a couple of non-vital instruments as well, just to kind of, you know, keep it balanced. But it's either my power consumption is far more than I thought, or the solar panel is drawing back through the system, which is something I've been talking to a couple of other yachty skippers about, and they said that's something that can happen. So yeah, I'm going to head off here. I'm trying to make as much north as possible towards Belfast, hoping to get up to Waterford today. So yeah, let's see how we get on. 13.4 volts after the charge last night, whereas before I was like sat at 12, which is a flat battery, and yeah, the 240 volt charger was on it all night, so it's charged it up now. see my waste bin is getting quite full. To dispose of foreign waste in the Republic of Ireland. They don't offer that service. So if you're travelling here in your boat, you have to carry all your waste with you, which is okay if you've got quite a big vessel, but when you're on 22 foot there's only sort of limited spaces. Mine is in that sort of port quarter in that side of the engine bay. I have to wait until we get to Northern Ireland and then just look like a proper bin man and carry like 3 or 4 bins up the road, you know what I mean? So yesterday I didn't get much footage in because obviously because of my battery power I didn't have much in the way of phone, and I had to turn it off to conserve some of that power. But also it was quite, the conditions were quite rough yesterday around the headlands, and I was on the helm the whole day, so by the time I got to Kinsale I was pretty tired as well. But I managed to get a walk around and the town's really nice. It's quite expensive here, I've noticed, so I think this is kind of like one of the hot spots on this part of the Irish coast. Staying at the yacht club wasn't too cheap either. It's €26 plus their sort of tax on that, so it ended up being €30 for the night. I mean, obviously with shore power and water and all the rest of it, which is something I really needed, and a shower obviously, but it's probably more than what I'd normally pay. I've got a huge castle here. It's the first thing you see when you come through. It's this massive unit. There's something on the other side as well. Incredible. That is a beast of a castle. It's like sort of Dover Castle size, almost. Well, it is. Great natural harbour here, so you can get your sails down. You've got plenty of space to do that before you go further into the harbour or out to sea. We've just got one reef in the main, and we'll see how we get on. I think it's quite light to start off with, but increasing during the day. We'll see what happens. We've got about 65 nautical miles to Waterford River, or there's a small little harbour just at the mouth of Waterford called, I think it's Dunmore West or Dunmore East, somewhere like that. So I'm aiming for there today. There's plenty of cool-off points along the coast, so yeah, if I've had enough to pull in there, but the hope is to get round and sort of up onto the proper like east coast part of Ireland by sort of tomorrow, and heading up to sort of more kind of towards Dublin. And the reason for that is the wind is increasing in strength again round that point. So there's a sort of turning point where it goes from sort of like northeast up to sort of northerly heading really. And I'd like to get past there before the stronger of the winds, if you like. It's always nice to look at contingency harbours along route, just to see if you do need to get in, then you know that's your option really. Yesterday was quite a tough day because there were 3 quite significant headlands that were causing quite a lot of swell around them. The last one yesterday, the lighthouse, around the lighthouse, you could see the overfalls from like a mile away. They were pretty significant, but you could also see the gap where they weren't. So I just kind of aimed for that, and that was my original track, was to go in and avoid them on the inshore part. It was quite scary getting quite close to the lighthouse like that, but ultimately it was just that sweet spot where you didn't have to go like 3 or 4 miles offshore to avoid the overfalls, and that really did shorten the time down. Just past Cowes Harbour and the wind's got up quite nicely. I think there's just a rain shower squall come through on the mainland. I've gone down to just a small foresail. It's got a destroyer coming alongside me here. can see the front gun turret. That Hebridean is amazing. It just works so well. I mean, in these light airs, you get the odd swell, you get the odd wave from this swell as well, just knocking the boat to the side, and then it just pulls it back, and very slowly though. It's not like a real right Gary kind of thing on the tiller. It just pulls it over and waits for the boat to respond, and you're sat there looking at it thinking, is it gonna work? And then gradually it pulls the boat round. It's a very gradual motion, this tiller pilot. Sorry, wind vane self-steering. It's not like a tiller pilot where if you go off course it'll like get it corrected immediately, and then overcompensate, and then waste even more power getting it back on from the other tack. It's like a very gradual motion, and the boat feels better when it's at the helm, not like the tiller pilot. Boat jerking from side to side when you're using that electric tiller pilot. Okay, so we're just, I think, coming up to Yougal now. Yougal. And I am seriously considering, in fact I think I will, continuing on to Dublin. It's about 130 miles away. It's a pretty substantial amount of time added to this passage. At least we've already done the best part of 50 nautical miles. The seas are building at the minute, but we've got about 30 knots forecast this afternoon, and then it's dying off. So where we are now, that would bring us, if we were to continue, that would bring us around what is known as the Baileys, which is like where the coastline starts to head north. You've got a series of sandbanks and stuff like that, and the wind drops around there, and I'm thinking the swell will too. So tomorrow the wind gets up quite significantly, up to about sort of a force 6, and I don't particularly want to be going around there in a force 6 if I can help it. So I'm going to continue and make best progress around there. Tonight's going to be reasonably sort of mild in terms of wind strength, sort of force 4 to 5. So we've just started to creep into deeper water. We've gone from 30 metres now to 60, 70 metres of depth. The seas have sort of become a bit more moderated than they were we're getting thrown into the cockpit a lot, and yeah, so we're heading into sort of a deeper part of the bay. So it should be, well, it is already starting to sparse out a little bit. Doesn't look like it, but it is. I might have to bring in a bit more of the genoa because it's pulling the boat around slightly, and putting the Hebridean out. And I don't want to be broadside onto these seas because it's going to get very wet indeed. So they forecast 4-6 for today, for this afternoon, which I think is what it probably is now. And there's a squall coming through here, so I expect it to get a bit more, probably a bit more gusty, which is again what they forecast. So yeah, it's just about keeping her comfortable and on course, which she's doing, so that's awesome. I hope it does ease into the evening, because my cooking goes completely out of the window in conditions like this with the rolling. Cold ravioli is not pleasant, but if it's a must, it's a must. Yeah, I've burnt myself before cooking quite a strong swell, and yeah, that's worse. So I prefer just to snack really until the conditions sort of subside, and then I can do a better meal really. Coast Guards have put out small craft warnings for this area for the last sort of 3 hours, but I think it is starting to dissipate slightly. I don't know whether it's because the strength of the tide is stopping.
Rosslare, Coast Guard Radio. Yes, that's received. Many thanks.
So yeah, I've come down here to just get out of the way of it. It started raining as well, and I am doing some food for this evening. I'm going to do like a double helping of chilli and rice again, yeah. And then what I'll do, I'll eat half of it now, and then I'll like have some for later on. It gives me something to eat without having to mess around, because as I make my way around to Rosker's sort of point there, I think it's called Rosker's Point, so yeah, going to be a bit of navigation there, and I need to keep my wits about me, so I don't really want to be bothering around with cooking. So yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'll just show you where I am on the chart and see what's going to be happening over the next sort of 9 hours. Okay, so I'll just show you. Oh god, this is all over the place. It's going to be quite difficult to find myself now. So where are we at? Okay, so Waterford is here. We've got the Red Bank here, Kilmore, just there, and then we've got Churchtown here, and the Tusker Rock is there, St George's Channel, and these bloody horrible things called the Baileys. Yeah, I'm a bit anxious about that, to be honest, but there are 2 routes I can cut through. Well, first of all, I'm jumping ahead of myself. We're here, just there, and we've been cutting along this coastline, and the wind and swell has been absolutely incredible. Really, I think it's starting to drop off now a bit, which is as forecast, but yeah, the Coast Guards have issued the warnings to the local area, the 4-6s, sort of, and yeah, so thankfully I'm in quite deep water here. I'm in sort of 60 metres, whereas earlier I was way back over here, and I was hovering around a 30 metre contour. and it wasn't pretty. Happened to be around here by midnight this evening, and then yeah, work my way up towards the these bloody things for later on in the morning. So hopefully we get around this point by the start of the stronger weather in here, and I think tomorrow it'll be 4s, 6s, 7s for this area tomorrow, looking at the forecast now. So hence the reason for working my way up this way. So yeah, and that's really kind of where we are at the minute. I'm hoping to be somewhere in the region of here by 6 o'clock in the morning and past this point. It looks like I may even do this on slack tide, which would be really good. I've now sewn my PLB device to my life jacket because there's like a little push big button on that, and it kept on sort of popping out. So I even found it laying on the cockpit earlier, thinking it was on my life jacket. So yeah, I wasn't aware it had popped off. So yeah, these sorts of conditions, you just need to have. I've just taken a bit better kind of preparation and due diligence, if you like. It's just a bit uncomfortable more than anything. It's just this swell is just rocking everything. A lot of squeaking dolphins out there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. They're squeaking their heads off. You probably can't hear that because it's like a really high frequency buzz, but yeah, I'll see if I can catch them on camera. It's funny, isn't it? As soon as I get the camera out, bugger off. It's like they know. Oh, where are they? Disappeared again. They've been jumping off the front of the waves, which is quite nice. About 3 or 4 of them at a time. They'll all do it together, which is just absolutely fantastic. Amazing to see. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I've plotted a position there at 12:30, and that is exactly 5 nautical miles since our last position, which was there. So that's pretty awesome. We've now clearly got the tide with us. Some nasty headland there, full of rocks and stuff. Hence the reason why they've got this south cardinal here, which is the what is that called? The conning beg. It's got an AAS beacon on, but I don't think it's actually switched on because I can't see it on my AAS screen yet. Even though it is 2.5 miles away. And then after this, I'm going to head up. I might just give it a bit of clearance because of these overfalls, but then we're going to head up and get to this point here, which is obviously the Wexford headland. You've got Carnshaw Point, and then you've got like Rosslare harbour up here. The swell is kind of settled. I think it's because a lot of these sort of banks and this gradual shallowing of grounding is maybe cut it up a bit, and the fact that the wind's dropped, I don't know. But yeah, apart from that, all good. It's now 2 o'clock, and yeah, it's dark, very dark. Just been outside and trying to sort the head sail out, but I can't stop looking in the water at the bioluminescence. It's like you can see the proper all the wake of the boat behind, and you can see where the bow goes to the water, and it's crackers. It's lighter in the water from my boat going through it than anywhere else, I think, which is mad. Just preheating the chili. Literally about a 5-second job. Okay, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Had quite a quiet last couple of hours. Just rounding some of the cardinals there, marking the rocks, etc. At the minute, I'm deciding whether to continue up to Dublin. I'm actually not feeling too bad now. The weather forecast is looking favourable. It's quite strong further offshore, but if I cut in where the Rosslare channel is, I can squirrel up the coast, and most of the wind is off the land, which is superb. Some people say that you can't go missing all the places out. I said, well, you've got to look at the end goal at the end of the day, and that's to sail around Britain. If I wanted to tour Ireland, I'd get a camper van and do it, and I'd see probably 4 times as much in a third of the amount of time. This boat is not like the sort of boat that you go around touring on. It's, for a start, I'm trying to get rid of my rubbish. I haven't got enough space on board, so I'm relying off mariners, very expensive ones, that like to always charge me 8 meters when I'm actually only 7, which really winds me up. And I try and make anchor as much as possible, but yeah, ultimately it's sort of kind of a case of, I like the places I go to, I enjoy and savour that, but I don't constantly chase myself thinking, oh, I should have visited there, oh, I should have visited there. It's like, yeah, okay, but I'm just really happy to be doing this in my boat, and occasionally crawling into somewhere and just being surprised by the place that I've gone to. Ultimately, if you had gone and designated 3 or 4 months to go and visit Ireland, there's a good chance that you wouldn't have gone to that place that I'd been to. So it's luck of the draw, really. We're just coming up through the small passage into a channel called South Sheer, and it's like really narrow, and the tidal strength there is going to be about 2 knots when we try and go up it. Managed to get pretty much all the way up this with not much tide, but it's just started to change, so I'm starting to see little overfalls and things like that. So we've done pretty well there, considering we were slow on the approach, and that wind is increasing all the time. And I ran over a fishing pot, like 2 buoys and a line between them. I ran right between the 2 a little while ago, and I saw it go past. I was drinking my cup of coffee and I saw it go past, and I thought, well, that's it then, isn't it? Well, that's it, we're going to be anchored here with a fishing line attached to my rudder. But it was really strange. It was just, I saw the line between the 2, and it was almost like we just passed between 2, like we didn't even exist. So I guess because of the shape of the keel, it slopes, it just slid down it and then just dropped off the back. And luckily it didn't catch the rudder or my wind pilot, which is good. So I'm outside Rosslare Harbour, but I'm stuck up against the beach looking for an anchor spot. There's absolutely no other boats there at all. There's lots of like fish pot type marine things, I don't know, and I'm trying to avoid them. Alright, I'm going to go and put the anchor down there, I think. I just need to get out of the way of this wind and sort myself out. It's been going for too long now. Okay, so we've dropped anchor in this bay. I didn't think there'd be any protection at all from this wind, but eventually I found some, just up against this bank here in this little village. Don't know what this is, I'll have to check in a minute. Yeah, things are getting a bit hairy, just blowing really strong, and I haven't had a drop of sleep, so I think another 7 hours I think is the next reasonably safe port. I think it's Arklow. There's a small bay out there, and that's 7 hours away, and another 4, 6 to 7 up my chuff, and I'm just knackered, and I've just, yeah. Anyway, this is nice. I'll get my head down for a bit, and then yeah, wait for the tide to change as well, because I'll be fighting the tide, which is ridiculous. I suddenly realised that the tide was taking me back over this bank, this like rocky shingle bank. So, I mean, it was blowing a hoolie, but I was still only just making like a knot. It was ridiculous. So I fired up the engine, and then the engine had a load of weed wrapped around the prop, so it wasn't really like, it was running, but it was just like, I think it was getting to the point where it was overheating, just blowing up around the pier there, where I was. So I crossed over the channel because some of these boats were starting to move from there. They've got an anchorage just out here, and then pulled the engine out of the engine compartment and released all the weed, because I can't get my hand down there far enough if it's in the well. Yeah, I've just woken up. I've had a bit of a kip, and this wind has really picked up. Seeing about 34 knots gusts. Yeah, now it's meant to be dying down later on, and I'm planning to carry on going, but yeah, hopefully. I didn't expect it to last this long, to be fair. I thought it would be sort of midday and then that would die right off, but just check the forecast again, and it's with us all the way through to sort of 5, 6 o'clock this evening, which wasn't expected. The visibility has improved slightly though from this morning. It's actually surprisingly good holding ground here. I thought with shells it wouldn't be that great, but woohoo! Just making the tide up here towards Dublin. We've still got about 44 miles to run, and I've just about run out of tide now, and we are just offshore, about 3 miles offshore from a place called Arklow. So just approaching Yougal Head. We've been doing really well against a foul tide for the last 5 hours. I left it, as I said, I left at midnight from Rosslare. Had the tide with me like through the start of the sandbanks and stuff, and then it changed, and we've been doing actually really well. I've been doing about 2.5, 3 knots. I know it doesn't sound much against what is a 2.5 knot tide. With almost no wind, which is, I don't know how I've managed to do it, to be honest, but in about half an hour the tide's going to change, and we're about 20 miles from Dublin, and having quite a few sort of thundery, showery kind of storm type cell things, and yeah, some of them are quite big. In fact, I think this one coming up is going to be another big one. A few rumbles I've heard. But yeah, I've just gone back to full canvas, and when we go through that, it's usually at least one reef, because the winds have been shooting up to about 30 knots, 35 knots. So it's a bit of a challenge, and I just want to get round this headland. I've seen it for like the last 4 hours. It's just doing me nutting now. But yeah, it looks absolutely beautiful, the Yougal Hills. Yeah, fantastic landscape. It was really flat round Rosslare, and now it's gone all hilly again. It's lovely. It's going to be heading through this little channel. Not much wind at the minute, so I've got the engine running. As I said, I'm really not sure what the tide's doing. I think it's slack water at the minute, but it looks kind of cool. Apparently there's an anchorage there as well, which is a bit odd. Seems a bit exposed to be for anchoring. It's got the cruise ship coming out. Water coming into the starboard side locker here. I think it's my deck join, which is like just under there. It's still leaking, even though I sealed it up a couple of years ago, but only with like real basic kind of silicone. There's still a bit on the port side that's coming in, but it's not as bad. So yeah, I've just had to empty everything out of this locker, and obviously this wet like stuff like that's been laying up against that bulkhead, and that's just out in the cockpit drying at the minute. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a job I need to do this coming winter. Some of this stuff was wet before, but it's just damp really more than anything. Some of it is actually completely drenched, but maybe only partially if it's been up against that bulkhead. Otherwise it's just a bit damp from being in this small enclosure. And I've got a repair to do on this wind vane system. So I've just given Hebridean a bit of a wash down because it had all green on the rudder. This is the repair I'm talking about. It's just, this is where the paddle goes, the actual vane itself. And this little pin here, if you can see, is wobbling about, and sometimes it sits quite at an angle, so maybe it's a little bit restricting the action of the wind with the wind vane itself. So I'm going to see if I can tighten that up and get that straighter. See, it's all wobbly. So I've just tightened up that little wiggly bolt screw slightly better. Got a few other ones just to tighten up. Apart from that, all looks good. Gave the rudder a bit of a clean because that got really green. I know some people put anti-foul on this, so I'm not doing that. But yeah, I might actually just like cover some of these weights as well with something, because yeah, the epoxy's not UV resistant. You can see it's starting to just go a little bit funny coloured. But yeah, oh, it's all good. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I am currently about a week away from heading back to Belfast, where I'm going to carry on the Round Britain Challenge, and hopefully the weather's going to be playing ball. It's not looking great at the minute, but yeah, things change quick with regard to weather, especially around the the British Isles are always changing. So yeah, I'll leave a link into my charity fundraiser below. That is to Cancer Research UK. I'm trying to build up a bit of money there and get to the target mark, which is about £2,500. So any donations made to that are a massive help. Many thanks. And all donations made so far, fantastic. Thanks very much. And I've got another video just to upload between the trip from Dublin to Belfast, so I'll get that done later part of the week. Cheers. Thanks for watching again.